So we have 2 hours. I'm willing to add 10 minutes to the schedule if no one has to go right off at 4 o'clock to make up for it. I was kind of thinking about how we could spend that time and cover it, and it's going to be tight. There's a lot to say and a lot that we could do. So I might have to do another one of these someday. So, but we'll get started on doing a bit of a chanting seminar today, and hopefully you'll find something useful in it. The origin story of this is I heard from Ryan and Jessica, maybe some others that I've forgotten, that they had been considering doing some regular group chanting here at PFA, and I said, well, if you do that, I'll come in and teach a seminar, because I think that's a wonderful idea. So, and they told me recently that they'd be starting on this day, and when would I like to come in? I said, well, why don't I come in on the first day? That's a good way to inaugurate a new tradition or a new group. So, and what I hope to cover today is to spend maybe 30 or 40 minutes going through polyphonetics and pronunciation, which you'll find in the back of the chanting book here, if you're not familiar with that. I will go through and both demonstrate and encourage you all to practice with me a little bit. I want to make the day kind of more interactive than speechy. And so my idea was to spend some time going through this, and then in particular use this structure too, because this is something you can refer back to again and again on your own to sort of practice. We have this online, we have the books here. Consider this your sort of like cheat sheet to kind of review and tune up your Pali proficiency from time to time. So we'll kind of go through that. But as chanting is not an academic exercise, this is a thing that you, a little bit of knowledge is good, practice is even better. So, and regular practice is best. So that's something we'll return to again and again, and I really want to encourage, and I'll give some suggestions for how you can make chanting practice something that you do individually, that you do as a community, and something that kind of like integrates and supports your kind of Buddhist life and path of practice, and something you can enrich all kinds of different areas of your practice as well. So we'll kind of cover that sort of as we go through the day. We'll start with going through, actually I'd like to start with a chant, just to kind of arouse some nice energy. Before we talk about chanting, let's chant and pay respects to the shrine. And then I'll go through the pronunciation. And then I thought we'd actually break into some groups. We have 4, 6, 8, 3, 5, 8. So we have 2 groups of 10 possibly, or maybe 3 groups of 6 and 7. No. It's kind of hard for me to do math right now.
Yeah. 2 sevens and 1
2 sevens and 1 6, that's it. Thank you. I was thinking, 14 and 6 does not equal. 14 and 6 equals 20. Yeah. So, because one of the exercises I've done a few times in monasteries is actually to sit around and practice chanting. It's like something that often doesn't happen. Usually we're just doing the chanting. And so once we do this pronunciation thing, then I'd like to break up into probably 3 groups so it's not too big. And we can just do 10 or 15 minutes even of like practicing and listening to each other in a group. Because also sometimes depending on the hall or where you're chanting, you can only hear a few people. So it's actually a good kind of exercise to sit around in a smaller circle and chant together, where you can both see and hear everybody and practice kind of like listening and harmonizing. So And then after doing that, we can come back together and I'll talk a little bit more about integrating chanting into your practice, and also just give some practical suggestions for you as individuals and as a community. So, okay, well, let's start off by bowing and paying respects to the shrine. And as we're starting a little bit late, we'll just do the first part of the morning chanting, which starts on page 2. So we'll do page 2 and 3 after we pay respects to the shrine.
And to the Blessed One's disciples who have practiced well, Dhammayang Bhagavantam Sadhammang Sasangham. To these the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, Ime Hisakare Hiyataraham Aropite Hiyapipujayama. We render with offerings our rightful homage. Sadhu no bante bhagava suchira parini buddhopi. It is well for us that the Blessed One, having attained liberation, Pachima Janata Nukam Pamanasa, still had compassion for later generations. Ime Sakare Dugatapanna Karabute Patigan Hatu. May these simple offerings be accepted. Amakang Digaratang Hitaya Sukhaya, for our long-lasting benefit and for the happiness it gives us. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava, the Lord, the perfectly enlightened and blessed One. Buddhang Bhagavantam Abhivademi. I render homage to the Buddha, the Blessed One. Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo, the teaching so completely explained by him. Dhammang Namasami, I bow to the Dhamma. Supatipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho, the Blessed One's disciples who have practiced well. Sangham Namami, I bow to the Sangha. Namayang Buddhassa Bhagavato Bhavavaganamakarang Karomase. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Sambuddhassa. Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one. Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one. Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Okay. So, please open your chanting books to the pronunciation section on page 138. And maybe just a show of hands, how many people have seen this before, or read through this before, or worked through this before? Hold your hands higher. Maybe 40%. Okay, good. So, it's actually a very, I think a very nicely done and concise kind of thing on Pali pronunciation, and in some of the particular ways that we implement chanting sort of like in our communities. So, highly recommend it as a reference for you. So, let me just sort my notes out here really quickly. I'm traveling light today, so I didn't bring my own chanting book. Okay, so the first thing I'd like to do is just go through the pronunciation. So the Pali language itself sort of means the language of the text, and it's a synthetic language, meaning it wasn't the natural language of any one people that we know of in South India. Similar to Sanskrit, it's a language that was designed to kind of preserve the text. So natural languages have a characteristic of mutating and morphing all the time, both pronunciation as well as meanings and slang and all kinds of things. So the virtue of having a constructed language is that you can sort of fix it. And unlike English, which is constantly mutating and morphing and is something of a mongrel of a language, absorbing stuff from all kinds of stuff, Pali is a very tight, defined sort of language. In this book, they're using a Roman script to represent it, but the Roman script is not the language. The language is sound. So, and the sounds are well prescribed, sort of in other scripts and ancient sort of resources, and very close to Pali language, or the Sanskrit language. So, well, we can't get away from our own linguistic sensibility, so you will hear Pali chanting done by different kind of groups of Buddhists or something, and it will sound different, like so different that you have a hard time understanding that that's what they're chanting, until a certain word or phrases pops out at you or something, and that's just it's somewhat mispronunciation, but more often it's just like their own native linguistic sort of sensibilities affecting how it is that their tradition has adapted the Pali language. So I'll point out a few different kind of features that differ from our language. One is there's a precise mapping between what is written in whatever script you use, even the Roman script for Pali, and actual sounds. So it's not like English, which is very imprecise. And they make distinctions between long and short vowels. And this is very important to sort of the timing of how Pali chanting works, the length of the vowels. We're kind of sloppy about it in English, but if you want to get good at Pali chanting, you need to distinguish the difference between a and a ah. So, and like they use the letter, the Roman A to represent the sound. And then they use A with a line over it to define the sound. And it's twice as long. So and and Yeah. So and e. And then we have, you can practice this as we're going through it if you want to. Ooh. As in rule. And then there's a couple vowels that are always long. So that's what's represented by the E, the Roman E, and the Roman O. So A, and O. So, and sometimes just as a kind of exercise, it can be good to sort of just go through these and see if you could practice in isolation doing them short and long. It's a little easier to get used to it sort of in the flow of chanting, and even easier when you do it with groups of people that are familiar with the chanting. So, and I'll use just the word of the Buddha. So Americans, I think, refer to him as the Buddha. The Buddha. The Buddha. And you could probably just spell it B-U-D-A if you're going to say it like that. Buddha. Yeah. If you ask a Thai person sort of to pronounce the name of the Buddha, they'll say Buddho, which is much closer to the Pali. It's preserving the length of the vowels. It's preserving aspiration. So do instead of da. So they would say Buddha. And then double consonants, which we're kind of sloppy about in English. Sometimes both consonants get pronounced, but most of the time they don't. In Pali, they always get pronounced. So that's where you're getting this bud. And then it creates like a stop when you pronounce both consonants. So Buddho, or Buddha. And the on Buddha is, looking at chanting book, Buddha. So it's short. Buddha. So sometimes, for aesthetic reasons, it might get stretched out when you're chanting it. But when you listen to the Thai people, they're really precise about it because they have short and long vowels and they're very meaningful in the Thai language. So you'll never hear them say Buddha. They're always like Buddha. So. Okay, so consonants. The C is unaspirated, and it's got like a j sound to it. Like so ancient. So you might think J, just to kind of train your brain. So ancient. paticca samuppada. Paticca samuppada, or paccaya, which means condition. Paccaya, just spelled like P-A-C-C. I'm not good at spelling. P-A-C-C-A-Y-A, I think. Paccaya. Paccaya. So there you have two C's, and you're pronouncing both of them, and they both have that ja sound. So paccaya, paccaya. So, and if you read that and you thought it was an English word, you'd say something like pakaya, or pasa, paka, or something. Yeah. So the next character we come to is the ng sound. So this is a nasal, and in many languages, M's and N's are sometimes interchangeable, and Pali is one of those languages. So there's some subtle distinctions, but you don't need to know these. It's pretty geeky. But like an M or an N with a dot over it is nasalized. Now what that means is the breath is, some of the breath is getting pushed out the nose. Yeah. And nasals are vibratory sounds. So we have and we're vibrating the lips. And some of the air we're allowing to kind of come up and out the nose. So try that. And if you put your finger here, you can feel a little bit of this air coming out your nose. And then if you move the tongue back a little bit, and in Sanskrit they have several positions for the tongue. So, but you can just put the tongue sort of like just behind the teeth, on the alveolar ridge of the mouth, right behind the teeth. And there's another one that you can try, which is which where you're using the back of the tongue and it's hitting the back of the roof of the mouth. But again, air is coming up through the nostril when you make this sound. So sangha. It's not sangha. It's not sangha. It's sangha. Sangha. And for any Spanish speakers here, it's very similar to the enye in Spanish. Is that right? He's my local Spanish speaker.
Except you're coming on the enye next too, so.
Yeah. Sangha. Oh yeah, the nya. Yeah. Well, that's also the nya
Yeah.
is sometimes nasalized.
Yeah.
So, but sangha, sangha, sangha. Sangha, sangha. Okay. All right, so our next consonant is the nya, the proper nya, as in canyon. And recently you had a visit from Ajahn Sudanto, right? So his name begins with the nya. So sometimes he doesn't always put the tilde over it, but his name is Sudanto. And jnana is knowledge, like wisdom knowledge. Beautiful word. So, and then the V is softer than the English and closer to a W sound. So, Why?
No, just
Oh. I thought you were asking me why. What? Yeah. So let's see. We're getting ready to start the VASSA. The Vasa. Yeah, Vasa. The something that would translate almost to like temperament, personality. The Buddha, one of the unique things about the Buddha is he has no vasana, which is kind of like even an arahant, a fully enlightened one who's penetrated, come to the end of karma, penetrated sort of the truth of non-self, still has characteristic, like personality characteristics, and the only one, and that's called vasana. So from all the past karma and his previous lives or something, there's various temperaments or what we would call personality characteristics that they might manifest. And the Buddha is the only one free of this kind of vasana, because he's the Buddha. So it's one of the special powers of the Buddha. So Venerable Sariputta was known to have a rather playful character, despite being such an excellent monk. And he would sometimes skip over mud puddles, and his elder brother, who was very ascetic and stern, Mahakassapa, would chastise him for this. And at one point the Buddha sort of said, he was a monkey so many lifetimes, this is his vasana, like stop giving him a hard time on the fact that he kind of skips over mud puddles from time to time. He's a good monk. He's doing nothing wrong. Can't help himself. Did you have a question?
Yeah, is there a difference with the E at the beginning of words and then the middle? Sometimes it sounds like it's more W-E in the middle of words, so like there's vasa, but then dewa coming.
I don't think so, but it's called sandhi, and the concept, because it's so well described in Sanskrit grammars, oftentimes due to proximity in language, sounds will change. And that's because the vocal system is like an instrument, and so if you think about any kind of instrument, if you're playing a piano, there's physics involved. You can only get the hands from one end to the other so fast, or you can only press so many keys at one time or something. And your tongue is doing all kinds of work at blocking air and releasing air, and your vocal cords are vibrating. So think of your vocal instrument like any other instrument, and there's physics involved. And so what precedes or what follows, the sounds preceding and following sometimes change how a sound gets expressed in language. So that might be what you're kind of hearing there. So, but there's no prescribed change in how you pronounce it. So, okay, next we come to aspirated consonants. So this is the little puff of air, the little airy kind of thing that comes along. And again, in English, we don't make a distinction oftentimes between these kind of sounds, but they do, and it's quite the feature in Pali. So it's not Buddha, 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 said flatly, it's Buddha. There's a little extra puff of air. Sometimes when people first learn this, they get a little heavy on it. You don't have to get heavy on it. Just add a little air. And it's just a little kind of air there when you see these consonants that are noted as aspirated consonants. So I'm trying to think. The second one here is CH, cha. So Dhamma Chanda. So it's still that kind of very J sounding, ja, 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 but it's aspirated, so it becomes chanda, chanda, chanda. So, and then we have ja and ka and pa and ta. And we're gonna, okay, let's see. Two letter denominations with the H are aspirated every sound and hard crisp on the single consonant. They should be considered as one unit. However, the other combinations with H, LH, MH, NH, LH, do count as two consonants. So, and the examples that they give here is jivha, jivha. So, because they're counted as two, you pronounce them fully, is the important point here. Yeah, exactly. Asala. Yeah, exactly. That's a great example. Yeah, so on Wednesday we have the Asala Puja. It's so contrary to our English sensibilities that most people mispronounce that word.
Asaha.
Asala. It's even spelled wrong in a lot of documents, including stuff that comes out of our monasteries sometimes. So, but yeah, it's Saha Puja. So, TH as in tongue. Tongue, that's a great example. So we just put a Roman T there, but we aspirate it. Tongue. Tongue. Yeah. And do you guys know this trick if you want to test for aspiration? Sometimes you tongue. No, it's not moving. Tongue. No, I don't know.
Might be fighting the airflow.
Yeah, maybe. So you can also just, the back of your hand's quite sensitive, so you can also just sometimes practice a hard and then an aspirated sound to sort of feel that difference. And then P as in palate. 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 Never pronounced as photo. It's a very different sound, isn't it? Photo. You could just put an F in there. There's no P necessary. So, retroflex consonants, I don't recommend spending much time on these because most of the monks and nuns in our tradition aren't versed in pronouncing these properly. But these are a feature of a lot of Indic languages. And they're the same consonant sort of sounds, but the tip of the tongue is just curled back a little bit when they're said. So when the tongue contacts the mouth, it makes a slightly different sound. So, and I can do it, but I don't practice it, so I won't demonstrate it. So, and even in Thailand, the Thais don't really pronounce, most Thai monks don't pronounce it. There's a few monks that get really serious about this, but they're an extreme minority. So I don't recommend worrying about it too much.
Sometimes in chanting I hear Dhamma pronounced tum, more like a T than a D, and the beginning of it.
That's the influence of a Thai phonetic bias. Yeah. So, and it's really, part of the reason I want to go through this is it's really hard to get away from the script influencing how it is that you perceive things. And it really takes kind of ear training and trying to sort of like rely on the sound and practice to do that. The more you kind of like stare at the text, the more that sort of like thousands of hours of reading that you've done in your life, tens of thousands of hours, kind of like exerts a little bit of a bias on how it is that you pronounce and even perceive the sound. But that's the effect of the Thai. Yeah, and it's particularly because of the way their phonetic script is and also like how they write it. So, okay, let's move on. So, as we have these short and long kind of vowels, and as we have a different way that we relate to sort of double consonants in particular, that in alone starts to sort of exert a kind of like a rhythm that you find sort of in the Pali chanting. And also, the way Pali tends to be constructed is you often have sort of consonant, vowel, consonant, vowel, consonant, vowel, consonant, vowel. So it's got this kind of characteristic kind of rhythm to it that comes out of the length of the vowels and the double pronunciations mostly. And then the fact that it oftentimes is just consonant, vowel, consonant, vowel, consonant, vowel. So, and then we have a little section here. I'm a little, when I was reviewing this, like they're talking about unstressed syllables here. And to my knowledge, there's no stress in the Pali language. I think what this is referring to is the length of the vowel. And the example that they have here is purely just the length of the vowels. So like the example we have here is Buddho, Susutto, Karuna, Mahanao. Buddho, Susutto, Karuna, Mahanao. You hear that? You hear that timing difference there? That's only just the length of the vowel that's really creating that, and the double consonant. I'm not sure why they use stress, because stress is a accent feature of many languages, including English. You know, it's a stress accent language. Like a lot of what makes up an English accent is how it is that you stress the words. And that also kind of adds extra meaning into it, right? It's like, I said no. You know, and depending on semantic meaning, we will put extra length and extra volume on particular syllables. And that's not a feature of the Pali language. So I don't tend to agree with them here, although I'm far from an expert, so I'm willing to be corrected. Stress is not really necessary. It's really merely a feature of the length of the vowel, as I understand. So, you guys want to try this? So, Buddho, Susutto, Karuna, Mahanao. Buddho, Susutto, Karuna, Mahanao. Buddho, Susutto, Karuna, Mahanao. Yeah. Okay, and then next we have the double consonants, which I kind of already went over, but we can actually practice this if we want to. So, anicca, anicca, anicca. So remember our yeah, and then that e gives us a full anicca. So we have a short a instead of anicca, and then a short cha. So anicca. Okay. Not anicca. 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 Okay, and let's do the next one. Puggala. 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 One more time. Puggala. 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 So here we have like this ending with a long A. So, and I think in English unless we're doing it for emphasis or something like this, we tend to end when we have a vowel ending, it tends to be short. So I think your tendency is to say pugala, pugala, pugala. And not pronounce the double G's, and to shorten the A a little bit. So, puggala, puggala, puggala. Okay. Aspirated consonants. Yeah.
So is it kind of like on the puggala? It's a little bit like you're swallowing that first G though, a little bit like.
It's a hard stop, yeah.
Yeah.
So, just pull back to linguistics for a second. Like when we speak, what's the difference between a consonant and a vowel? A consonant is a constriction or a stopping of airflow. Yeah. So, the vowels are unconstricted. We don't stop the airflow. We just move the tongue into different positions to create different sounds, and then we either round or we don't round at the lips. Yeah. So we have O and O, or O, or or E. Yeah. Like the difference between an E and a French E is just the difference between rounding and unrounding at the lips. The tongue's in the very same position. So, E, 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 all you're doing is changing the lips. E, yeah. And the most unconstricted sound, where the tongue's kind of in the middle, not too high, not too low, and not too forward and not too back, is like a sound. And there's all kinds of uhs depending on exactly where the tongue is in all kinds of languages. So when you're doing a double consonant, you come into a full stop, basically, because you have two consonants together. Whereas in English, if we can collapse that into just a single consonant, you're just briefly stopping the air. So that's what you're hearing there.
That makes sense.
So, pukala. And then sometimes, maybe for stylistic reasons, the way it's chanting, people might emphasize that stop a little bit more. And you'll hear that even in speech sometimes. Like some Thai monks, when they're giving Dhamma talk, Buddha. I mean, there's like almost a whole extra stop in there between the first D and the aspirated D, to give it real honor. So, okay, aspirated consonants we already talked around a little bit. So, now let's move on to the punctuation marks. So this is something that is a bit of an innovation in our tradition. It's by no means unique or original, but our particular tradition comes out of Thailand, which is a tonal language. So quite naturally, the way the Thais chant has this kind of tonality. There's 5 tones in Thai. So their linguistic sensibility when they're reading the Pali script is that some syllables should be high or low or falling or rising, which gives it a musicality that isn't built into the way we would pronounce this in English. And in the early days of our monasteries in England, they thought it would be nice to add a little tonality to it. And I think they were somewhat inspired by plain song, chanting, tradition in various Christian monastic traditions, where they just have a simple 3-note, high, medium, low, just to give a little musicality to otherwise monotonous kind of chanting that they would do. So they came up with this sort of system. So we have a high tone, a low tone, and then they added a length to it. So you have kind of a longer, bolder arrow, which is the low, long tone. I guess we never do a low, I never noticed this, but I guess we never do a long high. We have a long low. And then we have what they're calling guides, long mid-tone. So that's just stretching it out. So, all right, let's put this into practice. Let's go back and chant what we first chanted. And see if you can add a little bit of these. Let's look over the text really quickly and just kind of, in particular, pick out some of these tone markers. After 30 years, I still struggle with this because I learned the chanting in Thailand, and I internalized a lot of the way the Thais chant the Pali. And so many times when I'm leading chanting, I will put the book in front of me to try to match these tonal marks that they came up with. Because my mind wants to do the Thai tonality. So,
And then what you'll hear at Vairagiri often doesn't exactly match up.
yes, exactly. And what you'll hear from me doesn't always exactly match up either, so I'm all too human. So, yeah, then I see a few of these long low tones, like we render with offerings our rightful homage, and still had compassion for later generations, for our long-lasting benefit and for the happiness it gives us. So, and we haven't prescribed how high to go or how low to go. You just want to kind of listen to the chant leader and try to match it as best as you can, and hope that he's relatively consistent. So, all right.
The long tones are just in English. Those aren't in Pali.
No, yeah, actually you're right. We haven't added any of those, and that's probably because the rhythm is dictated by the Pali. So, so you can add some tonality or take some tonality away from it or something, but you really shouldn't. It would destroy the Pali to kind of start stretching things out. Well, you could. People do it in every language, you know. But they decide not to. So, okay, let's go through it. And I'll chant a little bit slower so we have a little space to kind of reflect on kind of the Pali pronunciation. Did you have a question first?
Should women be an octave above the men, or is it just kind of how I feel? Because I know it shouldn't be like harmony.
Wherever you want to be. That's good. Yeah, I've never heard it prescribed that way. So I think it might maybe just depend more on where your range is and what feels comfortable. So, and we don't put an enormous emphasis on making the chanting beautiful. I mean, oftentimes it is done as a communal and devotional sort of thing, but the Buddha himself sort of rejected trying to make the chanting or even the recitation beautiful. He was approached by a few former Brahmins that had become monks who really wanted to use Sanskrit and also develop the recitation to be very beautiful, and the Buddha said, no, don't do that. There's no need to do that. So, it's not much fun if everyone's just off in La La Land, grabbing for all kinds of notes and marching to the beat of their own drummer. So, so we're not striving for perfection or something like this. We're trying to harmonize, and I think that adds a kind of a beauty to it all in its own. So, okay, let's go through this. Maybe I'll just explain at this point too, since we'll go through this. In our chanting book, we have these brackets. This is typically done by the chant leader. So this first chant, there's brackets around yo, so. So whoever's leading the chanting would say that, and then you come in sort of right after the bracket ends. So, yo so bhagava arahang samma sambuddho, to the blessed one, the Lord, who fully attained perfect enlightenment, swakato yena bhagavata dhammo, to the teaching which he expounded so well, Supatipanno yasa bhagavato sāvaka sangho,
and to the Blessed One's disciples who have practiced well. Dhammayang Bhagavantang Sadammang Sasanghang. To these the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. Ime hi sakkare hi yattarahang aropite hi apipujayama. We render with offerings our rightful homage. Sadhuno Bante Bhagava Suchira Parini Bhuttopi. It is well for us that the Blessed One, having attained liberation, Pachima Janata Nukam Pamanasa, still had compassion for later generations. Ime sakkare dukkatapanna karabute patiganhatu. May these simple offerings be accepted. Amhakangti garatang idaya sukhaya, for our long-lasting benefit and for the happiness it gives us. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava, the Lord, the perfectly enlightened and blessed One, Buddhang Bhagavantam Abhivademi. I render homage to the Buddha, the Blessed One. Svakato Bhagavata Dhammo, the teaching so completely explained by him. Dhammang Namasami, I bow to the Dhamma. Supatipanno Bhagavato Sawakasangho, the Blessed One's disciples who have practiced well. Sangham Namami, I bow to the Sangha. Okay. Okay, so took a little longer than I thought. Surprise, surprise. So it might be nice to go ahead and break up into groups. And this is something that, like, for people that are coming on a regular basis or maybe outside of your meetings, you might want to do from time to time just as a practice to kind of work on your pronunciation and your harmonization and timing and also listening to one another. Oftentimes it's hard to hear our own kind of mistakes. And one of the things about group chanting that's very good is those mistakes kind of get a little highlighted, especially as you kind of devote yourself to trying to hit that kind of rhythm that's there in the Pali language. You start to hear sort of like, hey, wait, you're saying that all along. We're already moving on to the next syllable or something. And if you're doing it in a group or something, you can even sometimes, like, just have an invitation to sort of stop when you hear something that you either are having a hard time with, or you're unsure if the group's pronouncing it in the right way. But also just to practice, like, tuning in and listening to one another. In the monasteries where I ordained, oftentimes the monks would be sitting in long lines in a hall, and it's very difficult sometimes even to hear the lead chanter. They weren't always on a microphone. Also, there's like weird reflections. And so we were always instructed to really tune our ear to the monk just to your, it'd be to your right. So like the senior monk would be always like up to your right. And then you're always instructed to listen to the monk just in front of you, who's always the one who's at least a few hours or days or years more senior to you, and try to match him. Because sometimes, like in a big hall, the timing can get off. This happens at a Baigiri a lot sometimes, because it's hard for the monks are so spread out at a Baigiri sometimes that they can't hear each other. So the timing gets a little bit off. And one way to rectify that is listen to the person just in front of you. So I don't know, here, I mean, you might just like listen to the person to your left or right, provided that they know how to chant. Or maybe a person kind of in front of you. Or if someone's kind of leading the chant on mic or something, you can try to sort of match that as well. So, and one of the things I was going to suggest later, but I'll do now, is it might be valuable for you as a group or as a community to select kind of a reference recording of our chanting. So the various monasteries have put out recordings of the chanting over time. You could probably also request that they make a new one, which I think they need to do. Yeah.
They have a karaoke on their website.
They do. Yeah.
It works really well.
Yeah, so that's good. But the point I'm making is it would be good for you as a community, or at least the chanting group, but maybe even as a community, to pick one and say, this is our reference. Because, you know, with the nature of your schedules and stuff like this, you guys don't have the luxury of chanting every morning and evening for 20 or 30 minutes together. And my sort of sense is that's not enough. You know, if you want to get better at chanting, you want to really learn how to integrate some of the benefits of it. I think you need to take a period of time where you're chanting every day. And there's a value to sort of like doing some of that on your own, but there's a much bigger value in doing it in groups. So, and I'll speak more about that sort of maybe when we come back later. So, but that would be a really good kind of thing to do. And then you just have that as your reference. Whatever that is, we try to match that. So, okay, well, let's break up into some groups, maybe just for 10 or 15 minutes, and you guys can pick out one of the chants in the first section of the book. I would suggest like Buddha, Dhamma, or Sangha Nusati in the first bit here, because it's relatively short. And rather than try to chant a bunch of different chants, like maybe do it a couple times or something. One thing I've noticed over the years, too, is there's a lot of people that just have never got tone training or haven't sung much or had much practice kind of harmonizing. And it's quite, I don't say this in a pejorative way, but you know, there really are a lot of people that are tone deaf. They literally can't, they don't have much of an aptitude to sort of hear how the tonality of their voice is not matching the group or others. And that can be a really useful thing, either to do one-on-one or to do in small groups sometimes too, is just really work on developing the skill to train your ear. And I think everybody has something of an aptitude to improve to a level where it becomes enjoyable for the whole group. So, and it's worth making it enjoyable for the whole group. It doesn't take more than a few tone deaf folks to kind of diminish the experience for everyone a little bit. So, and then it is a skill also. This is, you know, essentially like in the singing world, this is a cappella singing or chanting. One of the vice abbots that was first at the monastery when I was in Thailand, he really wanted to get like a pitch pipe, and eventually he did get a tuning fork, which it was kind of like really pretty controversial in Thailand. But he was just sort of like, can't we just have like a reference tone, because everyone's just all over the place. And I would say about half the monks just hated chanting. And they were just like, I'm here to meditate and study Dhamma. There's no place in the suttas where the Buddha talks about chanting and chanting practice. What are we doing this for? And I was somewhat sympathetic, being a very young, overly idealistic 20-something. at the time. But I kind of grew up doing music and singing, so there was this other part of me that just kind of loved it. But ideologically, I could kind of understand why they didn't. And had I been tone deaf like they were, I probably would have leaned more into that camp. So, at my monastery, sometimes there's just one or two monks, and it's much more difficult to chant it with just one or two other people. Quite often they've been living at a baigiri where there's a sizable group of monks, and you can kind of just mumble your way through most days. And it's not really, doesn't really ruin it for everybody. Generally, nobody is saying anything to you. But if you come live with me and we have to chant and you're just going, doesn't work. Yeah. And like, if there's only two of us and one of us can't match the tone of the other, that really doesn't work at all. So a few of the monks I've had to sort of sit down and confront, and hopefully you guys can build a strong enough relationship in your chanting circle to be able to say, Ryan, you're not always on your tone there. Can we work on that? So, I've seen everyone can get better at it. So I don't use a lot of work, but just do a little bit of exercise. Like many of you know Jaganando. He was really surprised how hard he had a difficult time kind of matching my range and my tone when we first moved in together at the Hermitage. But he was also excited to kind of like work on that. And we had some sessions where I'd start chanting, give a tone, and then he'd see if he could match it, and I'd be like, and over time he got better at it. And then also just with practice and frequency or something, I think people quite naturally harmonize. It's actually kind of the beautiful thing. And it goes well beyond chanting, if people have the right attitude and patience and keep at it and keep patient, working together, I think gradually people do try to harmonize and find some sort of point of harmony in their interactions. So, and every time I have a new monk or a new couple monks kind of come to the hermitage or something, like there's just a time of adjustment where I'm learning to sort of pick my pitch in something that they can match. And so it's not just sort of like, I'm the chant leader, here it is. They got to match it. I'm always trying to find how to match it. And then I notice, like when I travel and I'm in a different space, things sound differently. There's a different group. I'm always doing the same thing. I'm trying to find something that works for the majority of the people. So it's a bit of a dance. But it's also part of the joy of it, It's like physically learning to harmonize with other people. And especially when it comes to the devotional aspect of this, I think it's something well worth investing time in for quite a number of reasons. And one of the more marvelous reasons is on the level of, to whatever faith and love you have for the Buddhist teaching and for the Triple Gem, it's really magical to invest some time into learning how a particular tradition does this kind of chanting and does puja and does ritual as well as meditation. It's expanding the opportunity you have to sort of commune with other Buddhists through time going way back. This is an ancient tradition, but also sort of through space. You can travel to Thailand and go to like the Ajahn Memorial Ceremony, and with 10,000 people, slip right in to sharing something that you've practiced on a regular basis with your Kalyanamita and your Dhamma friends or something. And it's just, monks that train at Abhayagiri, it's amazing. They've been training solely in America at Abhayagiri for several years, and they go, after 5 years, many of them will go to Thailand to train. And I've asked many of them sort of like, what was your impression arriving and everything? They said, I was amazed. Like, I arrived day one and I just blended right in because of the training I got. And sometimes they didn't realize how prepared they were to be half of the world away in a very different place, in a very different Buddhist subculture even, you could say. And to be so well prepared and adapted to sort of just harmonize with people. And I've known lay people that have kind of cultivated a practice of chanting, like being able to do refuges and precepts, some of our puja chanting, and then they've gone to Thailand and had the experience of doing that with other people that they can't converse with. You don't share a common vernacular language, but you share a Dhamma language together, and you share the language of devotion and puja. And like that's a beautiful and amazing kind of thing to have. A quiver, an arrow in your quiver, another Dhamma tool sort of there in your life. It's a way you can share an experience and share your faith with others. So I think it's well worth doing. So talk a little bit about some of the other, maybe I'll go through this first. Some of the other ways that you can integrate, and this can kind of nurture your practice. And then maybe I'll close with some practical suggestions and if there's any time, questions. So one of the overwhelming kind of uses of chanting in modern time is as a devotional practice. And in much of the world, in many Theravada countries, people hardly meditate at all, including monks and nuns. They're studying, they're running monasteries, they're doing rituals, but they have great faith in the Buddha and a pride that they're continuing the kind of tradition of Buddhist monasticism and devotional chanting is one of the kind of core practices of their life, and especially for many householders. They go to the monastery maybe on a regular basis to engage in devotional sort of chanting. Many of them, as kids, learned a set of devotional sort of chants, or maybe their granny or grandpa or mom or dad sort of taught them from a young age to keep a shrine and to learn some of the basic chants. And they had a family daily activity or practice of chanting homage to the Buddha, doing some devotional chants, sometimes even like something like the Mangala Sutta, the discourse on the highest blessings. And maybe they meditate, maybe they don't. So a lot of how it is that they practice and live as a Buddhist is sort of devotion to Buddha Dhamma Sangha, chanting practice, and maybe supporting the Sangha. And if there is some meditation, usually it's not for long periods of time, unless it's something that they've fell into or had some inspiration to dig deeper into. So for people that are, so one of the main benefits is it's a wonderful sort of way to nurture faith, exercise faith, both personally and communally. And if you just learn these kind of chants in the beginning, going through sort of devotion to the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, this is an ancient refrain dating back to the time of the Buddha, chanting and nurturing your sort of faith in the aspects of Buddha that are expressed in the Buddha Nasati chant and the Dhamma Nasati chant and Sangha Nasati chant. So there's that devotional aspect there that can be nurtured. And faith is a faculty that needs to be nurtured and cared for. It's not you have faith or you don't have faith. It's like anything. It's like mindfulness. It's like virtue. It's a spiritual sort of faculty that needs to be cared for and should be nurtured and developed over the course of your life. I already talked about the ability to commune with others, nurture Sangha, connect with other Sanghas, other Kalyanamitta through this. And I like how physical and non-intellectual it can be. Yeah. So we have lots of time where we're reading books and we're listening to Dhamma talks and we're discussing Dhamma talks, or we have Dhamma programs to study various aspects of the Dhamma. And this is a way just to connect with the Dhamma in a way that doesn't need to involve a lot of sort of thought. And I think you're accessing different parts of your being, different parts of your consciousness, different parts of your mind. And while you're chanting, especially if you've put some effort into sort of memorizing the chants, and especially when you're chanting with a group and you're good at it, it doesn't take a lot of focus. You're there and the Dhamma is being chanted and kind of expressed. And you're in a different mind space. And it does open up opportunities for various faculties and even insights to kind of crystallize or integrate into your mind. So, and sometimes, especially when I'm chanting with a large group, and we're chanting some of the longer chants, like the Dhamma Chakravartana Sutta, or this one that we chant in the mornings, it's called the Supreme Praise of Buddha or something. Salutation of the Triple Gem, which has a lovely kind of section on the 5 khandhas and anicca, dukkha, anatta. Sometimes, like, I'll be chanting with the Sangha, especially when I was at a Bhaigiri, and like my mind is just kind of everything I've contemplated and studied around the 5 khandhas and the 3 characteristics is somehow aroused or intrigued. And I'll even stop chanting or just chant very kind of quietly so I can just focus the mind on that aspect of Dhamma. So it's just, again, opening up other modalities and other opportunities to kind of connect with the Dhamma and create fresh nutriment for faith and insight. So it can be a wonderful sort of tool for taming the hindrances. So if you're feeling a bit unfocused or a bit restless or a bit dull or something like this, if you've invested time in chanting, it's something you can easily kind of go to. And again, you're using your breath and you're using your body as well as your heart. It can be a really profound tool for changing your mind in a good way and starting to kind of change the mix there and kind of quell some of the power of the hindrances. So in our monasteries in Thailand, in the morning and the evening, we chant for an hour before we meditate. So there's a lot of space there, and over that course of an hour, especially when it starts at 3:30, I might be trying to wake myself up at first and get really cultivate some brightness and some energy. I might be trying to nurture my faith and inspire my mind. I might try to be stimulating my Dhamma Vichaya faculty, my curiosity about the Dhamma, you know. So I'm not just blindly going through the schedule of the day. My mind might be restless, especially at the end of the day. My mind might be restless, and so in that period of chanting, I have a chance to really start to kind of recollect the syllable by syllable, word by word, the chant. Or if my mind's really restless, I'll open up the book and just karaoke style go. Word, 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 word. And that's Vitaka Vichara. You're kind of training the sort of initial and sustained application of the mind. And just exercising that. Boom, boom, boom. And also because I'm harmonizing with these other people, I need to be present, I need to be on time, I need to boom, 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 boom. You know, and you're exercising that kind of muscle, and then the chanting kind of ends. Now I go to the breath. Boom, 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 boom. Yeah. So it can be a really wonderful tool just for creating a more fit mind for meditation in particular, quelling the hindrances. Even outside an aspect of meditation, just in your day, you're feeling restless, you're feeling dull, something like this. You can just take a little break, and either silently or out loud is even better. Recite one of these chants. You're feeling hopeless, you're feeling depressed, you're feeling overwhelmed. Go to your shrine, bow 3 times, and just do a short chant. You know, just like break the momentum of the mood, break the momentum of the rumination. And to have something that you practice and that you can, a tool that you can pull out of the box and use is really great, you know. And there's something about the physicality of the chanting, I think, that's really quite effective for that. So, it's a wonderful preliminary meditation. This is similar to sort of quelling the hindrances, but, you know, just to come into a room or your sitting place in your house or something like this at the end of your work shift or the end of your day or something, and just to sit down and try to do something as refined as follow your breath can be a bit jarring. The mind's maybe not all that fit. And so like chanting can be a very nice, what I call preliminary meditation. And I've talked about this before, but I have lots of little preliminary meditations that I'll do for 5, 10, or 15 minutes. Even if my main goal is to sit and cultivate samatha or to follow the breath, unless my mind is like really in a great place and just inclining to go straight to the breath, I'll spend some time doing the 5 recollections or doing the Brahma Viharas or doing just metta or just going through one of these chants, just to kind of start to prepare the mind, start to arouse some focus or to arouse some energy that's going to be supportive of the meditation process. So to stimulate Dhamma Vichaya again, you know. You know, one of the aspects of sati, which is translated as mindfulness, like in its primary meaning, is to recollect, to remember. And there's many times in the suttas when the Buddha is talking about sati, is like he remembers what he has been taught. He remembers dhammas. He remembers what has been said long before. And so part of the practice of sati is being able to sort of recollect these very things that we're kind of chanting here, but also like various passages in the suttas that are interesting or meaningful or maybe topically relevant to dhammas that you're working with are wonderful things to break out and memorize and chant. And it's very valuable exercise to memorize a good portion of these chants that you're using, but then also ones that really just speak to you. One, you'll notice all kinds of little things that you've overlooked when you go to the effort to sort of memorize it so that you can, by rote, kind of pull it up into mind and recite it. You will find through your day, but especially in your meditation, that you'll effortlessly be able to pull up these dhammas to, again, work with hindrances or inspire the mind or to support some avenue of investigation. So sometimes I'll find a particular passage in the sutta that I just really love for contemplation. I'll write it down on a sheet. I'll memorize it. And then I'll, with some regularity, sometimes I just leave it next to my meditation cushion. And then I'll pull it out. And before I meditate, I'll read through it. And then I'll see if I can kind of recite it and contemplate it a little bit as a preliminary meditation. And then I do my meditation. Sometimes after the mind's refreshed and serene, it just comes back up. Sometimes I willfully come back to that theme to contemplate it. Sometimes it just pops up later in my day. Sometimes it pops up when you need it most. So completely unbidden, you know. And by all means, you can chant those things, memorize and chant those things. So you're not just constricted to what you find in the chanting book. So yeah, those are all a few different ways or practical applications of how you can sort of like integrate that into your kind of Buddhist life. You know, it can both nurture sort of like working with the mind, developing sati, developing wisdom, stimulating sort of fresh recollections, quelling hindrances. And lastly, just to mention some practical sort of suggestions. For those of you who see the wisdom are inspired to kind of really take on chanting, it's something that really does benefit from a very consistent sort of effort. And I think with walking meditation, with sitting meditation, with chanting, something like this, if you really want to try to see what it has to offer for you, it's good to make a commitment to a period of time to cultivating it and then seeing what it might have to offer you. And in some sense, like, you need to engage your creativity and figure it out. You can just be taught a meditation form like walking meditation, but you have to figure out how to make it work for you. And chanting is the same thing. And I kind of came to this after a while in the monastery. I'm like, this is crazy. I spend an hour in the morning, an hour in the evening. Then there's these other times where you have to sort of chant, And sometimes it all just felt very perfunctory. And sometimes I would just be feeling, I want to be meditating, or I want to be doing this, or I want to be studying my Dhamma book or something. But I'm in this community, and the Ajahn said we have to chant now. And for a while I was like, that's kind of not right. I need to sort this out. I shouldn't just be sitting here feeling all butthurt because my preferences aren't being met. I want to be in this community. I get a lot from this, and this is the stuff of my life. I need to figure out how to make this work for me and my personal goals as well. And so that's part of how I came up with some of this. Like, I'm spending a couple hours every day chanting. I better make good use of that time. Because even as a monk, I only got so many hours in the day. So I think it'd be a wise thing if you're inspired to sort of take this on and try to put some energy into it and see how it is that it might benefit or serve you in your spiritual life. To make like a commitment to 30 or 60 days or whatever seems reasonable. I wouldn't suggest a year. Make it smaller than that. So, and I would suggest to chant daily for that time period. So that's not practical to do all together. That's part of the reason why I was sort of suggesting maybe have a reference chant that you guys can share. You can pair up with people and have a chanting buddy if somebody lives somewhat close to you, so you can meet and chant a little more than you're meeting here together. You can certainly chant by yourself. Chanting online can be a bit difficult. I've tried it a lot. There's the timing, the lag or delay is a little off. There are a few services that are very low latency, depending on your internet connection. One that I've used before that's pretty good is called Clean Feed, and they do have a free account or a free service. I can't remember how many people can be on at the same time, but it has very good clarity because of the way it's kind of engineered for audio engineers to be able to sort of do remote work. But if you investigate, you might be able to find something that's low latency that works, so you can kind of like maybe chant online with a chanting buddy or a small group on a more regular basis. But however you do it, just I think making a commitment for 30 or 60 days to chant every day for a period of time that works for you. Again, don't be too ambitious. Like, do something that you can be consistent with and develop it as just a daily, regular habit. And then start exploring sort of, and also just being sensitive to how it might benefit you in your Buddhist life. So, in addition to being able to kind of come together and chant together. So, all right, I'll leave it at that. And maybe since I came late, we'll give 10 minutes for questions. If Bob's okay? Bob came up. You're not in a hurry? Okay, good. So we can have 10 minutes for kind of questions. And before we go into that, also in closing, I'm really excited for the community that you guys are exploring having kind of regular chanting group. It's something that's been a big part of my practice. One of the things I miss the most living at the Hermitage is living with a bigger group of monks and chanting every day. It's not quite as fun by yourself. So it's great as a community that you're making a commitment to it. It fits very well with this being a center rooted in the Ajahn tradition. Yeah, I'd like to encourage and also support you guys. So if you want to have me in again or come out and chant at the Hermitage with me, I would love that. The Upasakas have been coming out once a month, and we do refuges and precepts, and I've really benefited from that. Because sometimes months and months and months would go by and nobody had asked for refuges and precepts. And then all of a sudden I'd be put on the spot and I'd be like, oh yeah, how does that go?
When is that, once a month?
It's on the calendar, I think, isn't it, Jessica?
Yeah, first Tuesday. the
First
event
Tuesday.
will drop. And then starting September, there will be third Saturday? Second Saturday.
Yeah. Okay.
In Pasika program, and you'll be requesting the refuge and
Yeah.
precept. Ajahn will get a lot of practice.
Yeah, good. I need it. I need it.
And then this Saturday will be, some of us will be going out for Asaha Puja.
Asalha.
Asaha.
Asalha.
Might do some chanting there this Saturday as well.
Yeah, that would be great. So,
What would be what's the sutta to chant on that day? Is there one of the cardinal suttas on that day?
not really. I mean, it's the
Is it a...
no. That Magha Puja is when the Buddha gave a lot of Patimokkha. It's said to be the day that the Buddha gave the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta. So like he was enlightened on Visakha Puja, and they enjoyed the bliss of enlightenment for quite a while, and then wandered to go find the Panchavagi, the 5 ascetics, and then gave the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta to them, and drug them over the line to arahantship in the course of days. thus the Sangha was born.
Are, two questions. Are any of the paritas, like as a layperson, are we allowed to chant those?
Mm-hmm.
And then would you ever consider recording some paritas?
Mm-hmm. I think on our YouTube channel we still have some, but I have to sort through and see. I've left up morning and evening chanting on there, and I know some people listen to it with some regularity still. So that might be your reference chant, although we don't have a lot of the reflective chants in there. But for the core morning and evening chanting, that might work for some people. The paritas, one thing I'll say about the paritas is there's a strong tradition in Thailand of like inviting monks to chant the paritas for a blessing ceremony. And the tradition there is to let the monks chant and not to join in. So, but there's nothing sacred about who can chant the paritas.
Is it not parita?
That's burritos.
Burrito.
Sounds, yeah, exactly.
Burrito.
So it's
Yeah.
parita, not
Parita.
parita.
Yeah, so yeah, it's those are some of those are wonderful to learn. One of the ones I find the most fun is the Abhidhamma chanting that we do for funerals, because it's kind of like a very interesting sort of list of all these kind of dhammas from the Abhidhamma, and it's just got an interesting kind of rhythm to it as well. So, anyways.
I had a question about, when we were talking about working on tonality and agreement and listening to one another. Would it be better to use an English translation of a chant that most of us would know to do that, so we're not as stumbling upon focusing on pronunciation and wording, or does it matter?
Maybe, yeah. Maybe that is a good idea. So, I mean, sometimes I would literally just be chanting a tone and then see if you can match it. Chant a tone and see if you can match it. You know. One technique the monks use when they do some group chanting, especially when they're doing like some ritual chanting, is, and some of you have seen this before, we'll go na, na, and so like that's like to cue people, like that we're going to do namo tassa, but also it's to throw an initial kind of tone out there, na, and then na, okay, namo tassa. So usually the monk will go na, namo. So like when you hear him, na, namo. So you can make it just as short as that too, and kind of repeat that a couple of times with a little bit of a break, just to practice coming in on with the same timing and the same note. So, but the challenges I often sort of see is, some people just haven't trained in being attentive, and part of the value in spending time practicing on a daily basis, and especially if you go to the effort to memorize it, is you can direct more of your attention to harmonizing, and also more of your attention to enjoying it. Yeah. So like, if you're just struggling to get the double consonants said right and all this kind of stuff, you're using a different part of the brain that is not as fun. So good practice makes for a more enjoyable sort of chanting session when you come together. So.
Is there a recommended way to pronounce R in Pali?
R. Is there?
I kind of do it not so.
A
Maybe
bit of
just
a
a
roll.
couple rolls.
Yeah, the Thais do too. Yeah.
It's more of a ra,
I've had a
not
hard
like a ra.
What's an R word in Pali? I'm trying to-
Rahula. Well, I mean that would it would be a middle R.
Oh.
I guess.
Arahan. Arahan. That's what it
It
ties to.
depends on the
When they want to
words.
make it really fancy, they trill the R even more. Arahan. There's a few monasteries that have fancy chanting. That.
Quick pronunciation question. So, like on the bottom of page 7, Amishasanga,
Yep.
we have Akuneo, but in my recordings I hear Akunayo.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering where that's coming from or like what's correct there.
Ahunayo. Page 7.
Yes. At the bottom.
Ahunayo. 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 Yeah, I think the A gets truncated. Is that what you're hearing? Or is it you're hearing the A becomes a I?
Yeah, I'm often hearing instead of like Akuneo, it's
Ahunayo.
Akunayo.
Ahunayo.
And it seems
Ahunayo.
to not quite match up with.
Pahunayo. Ahunayo. Pahunayo. Ahunayo. Pahunayo. Is that what you're not hearing, or is that what you're hearing?
That's what I'm hearing in some recordings.
Yeah.
But I'm just wondering, is that a quirk or is that correct pronunciation?
Ahunayo. I think it's Ahunayo. Ahunayo. I think a lot of people sort of shorten that initial A because it's unnatural in English to have a long A starting word.
He's talking
He's
about
on whether it's
anayo versus anayo.
Anayo versus
Anayo.
aneo.
Nayo or neo?
Neo.
It's
Ahunayo. I'm not sure.
Nayo. Definitely
Ahunayo.
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 I've never heard that, by the way.
I have actually. I've heard what he's talking about, but I myself am not clear. I think it's ahunayo. Ahunayo. I don't think it's neo.
I think it's Nayo. for sure.
Ahunayo.
That's how I say it.
Really?
For sure.
Ahunayo.
Ahunayo, Pahunayo.
Okay, there you go. You got 2 monks and you have 2 fingers.
He's been a monk longer, so.
It says A is in gray.
He has
A is in
excuse, I
gray.
guess.
Ahunayo. Ahunayo.
Hence the A is.
Ahunayo.
Okay.
Definitely in Thai they pronounce it Nayo, I think.
Right.
And that's probably where it's coming from. The Thai probably pronounces it. Ahunayo, ahunayo, ahunayo. Oh, that's I'll go back and listen to it. I would sometimes this way of describing pronunciation is fairly imprecise. So I might go and look at the real phonetic information for it, just to kind of check on it, to see how good of an explanation that is. So, because I have a little bit of linguistics kind of training, so yeah, there's not one way in the U.S. that we say gray. Depends where you were born. So.
One thing I had heard too is like the English translations vary from different translation books. You know, ours kind of actually flow quite nicely, and it's because the lady who did the kind of putting the words together in the tonal system, she was like a lyricist for a famous rock band, like a British rock band, and she was a nun at Amaravati for a time.
Def Leppard.
Yeah, Def Leppard.
There's this for Def Leppard in its early years, as well as like she had other musical.
Yeah, she was like musically talented.
Yeah, she was part of the committee and had a big influence on the
Yeah.
chanting. I think she was probably the one who suggested the tonality
Yeah, that's right.
sort of markers and changes and did a lot of work on it. So.
But seriously, Def Leppard?
Yeah.
It's a joke.
No, it's deaf. Yeah, seriously. Yeah, Obasra was her. Oh, yeah.
That would be the best two truths and, or what is it, two lies and a truth in that game? You can all take that next time you play that game.
Ryan, should people connect with you after this today if they want to continue chanting with the group as you figure out the timing?
Especially if you're not on the e-group already, because I'll send out an email to kind of create a separate email for the chanting group. So if you're not in there, please still accept your contact.
Also, I would suggest, I'm probably not going to come in and do this every time, but maybe built into the group too, for people that want to join in, to do some and also for people that are in the group, to do some periodic kind of pronunciation thing, again, using that same sort of reference, you know, because as you practice and as you chant, like more questions come up and you notice like all these weird things that Dansky's noticing, you know, and so it's great to take an interest in that. So the more you kind of invest in it, the more meaningful I think it becomes. So, okay, should we end it there today? All right. All the best to you. I'm happy to see you guys embarking on this. So.